Joining us on News Radio 930 WBEN with an update on bars and restaurants and what the situation is from the firm of HoganWillig, actually HoganWillig, where, yes, my daughter is an attorney, but she's not involved in this particular case. We have Buffalo attorney Steve Cohen. Steve, our friend Paul Cambria was watching with bated breath. He was wishing you all the best. I didn't have a chance to watch because I was on the air. Can you tell us about bars and restaurants and when we can expect them open? Where does the case stand right now?
Sure. Well, first of all, Paul Cambria has been one of the soldiers fighting this battle. He and his law firm have a number of plaintiffs. We have many plaintiffs, and there's other law firms around the state that are finally starting to get some momentum in the courts. Justice Nowak heard the case. There were a lot of judges listening. We could see who was signed on, so there's interest all around. But the judge reserved decision, and we expect to get a decision from His Honor in about 5 days.
Okay, now, you're the lawyer. I'm not. To me, it sounds like a case that could have easily been decided today. If we're going to follow the math, and 1.4% of new COVID cases, according to state statistics, are from bars and restaurants, they should be reopened this weekend. Why a 5-day delay? And I know you got to be careful talking about a judge.
Well, it's the judge's prerogative, and to be fair, this was the motion for a preliminary injunction. So papers were filed as recently as today. The Attorney General filed papers as recently as yesterday. So the judge, if the reason that His Honor wants to wait 5 days is so that he could read all the papers, I think that's prudent. And this is a cautious judge, and I think he wants to make sure that he's got all the facts and all the law and all the arguments before he decides. But yes, I mean, as an advocate, somebody who believes very, very strongly in this position, I would say that it would have been nice if the judge had simply opened up the restaurants immediately. And the statistics that you cited are even more compelling than that. Ever since the restaurants have been shut down to indoor dining since November, and since then, we have seen a societal spike in Western New York. We've seen a spike in COVID-19, and when we know it can't be caused by the restaurants because they're not open. So that's more compelling, and it dovetails into the expert we have. We got a world-renowned physician, Kanta Ahmed. She has a worldwide reputation. You could look her up. Kanta, Qanta, Ahmed, Ahmed. World-renowned physician who said that forcing people into homes where air exchange is so limited is going to increase the incidence of the COVID-19 virus, and it's going to promote the spread. And we also had an engineer's affidavit where he did some airflow studies, and airflow studies in homes. The typical home is 0.3 exchanges of air per hour. In restaurants, he looked at among the 92. We have 92 plaintiffs now, by the way.
Wow.
The 92 plaintiffs, he took Duff's on Sheridan Drive, which is an older building.
Yes.
And he said this would be a very good exemplar to use because we figure it'll be a good average airflow. And the airflow was something like 16 to 20 air exchanges per hour.
Instead of 0.3 in a house.
Instead of 0.3 in a house. So the thinking here, the science of it, as Dr. Ahmed made clear, is that if you go to a restaurant, you're actually in a cleaner environment where everybody there is exercising the COVID-19 safety protocols, hand sanitizer, masks, gloves if they're food handlers, social distancing, limited per table, limited to just a few people per table. And the science that's before the court now is that the worst thing that you could do is force people to gather at home. So, we are hoping for a positive decision. We wish that we could have been open this weekend. I mean, tomorrow is the Bills game, as everybody knows, would have been a good moneymaker for everybody, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, at least in the zones so designated by New York State. Last weekend we went to dinner at Dockside, and it was really sad because we're looking across the canal. I could have swum there in 30 seconds. I'm a good swimmer. And Prescott's Provisions, they were just relegated to taking down their Christmas decorations. No customers. We were all at the Dockside spending money there.
Very frustrating. You're absolutely right. And Prescott is one of our clients. And that argument was made today before Justice Nowak. We said, look, less than 100 yards away, our clients that are on the Erie County side of the canal are looking over at their brethren. We're not taking away anything from the other restaurants, but we're saying they're open and they're thriving and they're doing great. Why can't we? And that goes to the equal protection argument that you can't treat different people differently, different businesses differently, unless you have a compelling reason.
Now, with Letitia James, the Attorney General, arguing for the state, what possible arguments did she make to try to refute yours, and did she bring up Jacobson?
Well, she. That's why I enjoy talking with you. You're very well informed. No, the Jacobson case didn't come up. We were prepared for it, but the judge didn't raise it, and that was a 1905 case based upon the smallpox epidemic in Massachusetts, and that they were fining people $5 who refused to get the inoculation. And although Judge Scretany said that Jacobson was a controlling case because it's never been overturned, it's been attacked so effectively by so many courts around the country that I don't think it's an issue anymore. That, first of all, that was a statute, not an executive order. And second, it was the world was a different place. It was half century before the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Yes.
But the person who argued for he attacked us. He said, well, the statistics that petitioners are throwing out that the capital region has 10%, a 10% infection rate, and Erie County has an 8%, is false. Where do they get that from? So right then and there, the paralegal who kind of sat in the sidelines types in, New York COVID.gov or whatever the name of the title of the website is, and out comes the chart, which showed it. And Corey Hogan, who did all the heavy lifting today, Corey did the arguing. The judge only gave us each side 20 minutes. So even though Corey and I planned for 2 hours per side, and we split the issues right down the middle, since we were only being given 20 minutes, we figured let Mr. Hogan just hit all the arguments, the constitutional, the factual, and all that. So we were able to say, and Corey doesn't rub things in people's faces like I like to do. So he was a gentleman about it, and he says, well, we're looking at the government's website, New York State's website, and we just typed it in. This is what comes up now. I don't think that the Attorney General's office was prepared to combat our facts. The only thing they said was that our world-class expert, Dr. Kanta Ahmed, he said that at one time in the past, she suggested closing commercial establishments. Yes, she did. That was before all the studies, before they learned as much as they did. But that was his big gun. That was his one shot. He couldn't refute the airflow studies that were done. He couldn't refute the fact that when restaurants were open, the following numbers that the governor produced on December 11th showed only a 1.4% spread from our open restaurants, nor could the Attorney General refute that after 3 months or after 2 months of closure, 2.5 months of closure, that the numbers are spiking. So I think that the equities and laws and facts balance in our favor, but we're going to have to wait the 5 days until we get a decision.
Now, 5 calendar days or 5 business days?
His Honor said 5 days. And this is a hardworking judge. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 5 calendar days.
Just out of curiosity, you were arguing on behalf of both restaurants and freestanding bars?
Yes. Out of our 92 petitioners, they are comprised of bars and restaurants and taverns And I think we even have a wedding venue or two in there.
Just another question I have to ask you, and it is, did the constitutionality of Governor Cuomo's edicts come up in court at all? In other words, because the state legislature, under our Constitution, did not have the power to divest itself of its power and give those powers to Governor Cuomo, that therefore anything Cuomo says doesn't matter because it's illegal from its basis.
Yeah, we were very pleased that this judge asked specifically about the constitutionality. He asked about, he raised the point, it was clear that he read the papers, and he said, now, as I understand it, you guys are arguing, petitioners are arguing that Executive Law 29A is unconstitutional because of the legislature doesn't have the power to delegate their authority to the governor. So that was nice that he raised it, and the Attorney General did not really respond meaningfully to that. Then the judge asked. He was interacting quite a bit. He didn't just give each side 20 minutes on a stopwatch and then shut us down. His Honor was asking pointed questions, and His Honor asked about equal protection, and he asked about due process, substantive due process, but not in that language. He was referring to the arbitrary and capricious nature of the actions being taken by the governor, which is substantive due process. That's the whole Fifth Amendment, 14th Amendment thing about how people can't be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, and that's substantive due process and also procedural due process. Before you take something from someone, you have to give them a chance to argue or to have a hearing or have an administrative review of what's being done so that evidence can be presented to see if the governor had a rational basis for taking that action. So the judge did get into constitutional issues. He was more concerned, or at least publicly for this meeting, which was attended by some 300 people electronically,
Yep.
I'm told. But he was more concerned with the facts, and that pleases us too. Whether you take a practical approach or a legal approach, I think petitioners win.
Well, let's hope so. Steve Cohen, you, along with Paul Cambria and some other local attorneys, doing yeoman's work representing almost 100 plaintiffs today. I wish you the best, and I know the minute we get a decision from His Honor, you'll be calling me if I'm on the air, or whoever's on the air, whether it's a morning show or David or me. I hope we'll talk to you as soon as that decision comes out.
Well, thank you for your continued interest in this, Tom.
Well, very much so. Thank you, Steve Cohen, HoganWillig. So there's nothing that I can really say to recap properly, so we'll just cut it at that. Tom Puckett will have more coming up on the news at 5:30 on WBEN. A lot of lawyers were watching the proceedings today, and probably a few judges, too.